Now this next bit is from the channel Luna Oi, one of my favorite channels, a communist in Vietnam. She and her partner EJ American Johnson, they both live in Vietnam, and they have really great content. So I invite people to join their channel. And so anyway, let's have a look at this. That's right, and this has Danny Haifong from the Black Agenda Report. So I'm focusing mostly on what Danny says, and a little bit from Professor Flowers up here, just because it's sort of more on point, I feel, anyway, to what they're talking about. Yeah.
About Vietnam, because we wanted to highlight socialism and how...
That's Luna up the top there. She's a little puppet. We like her.
Socialism is a democracy, and how, you know, we should be paying attention to actually existing socialist countries. So that's something I focus a lot on. And white supremacy, you know, that's how I got into this struggle, you know, from early on, just understanding white supremacy as being just part of daily life in the United States, and then that evolving into understanding the economic roots of it in capitalism and imperialism, and learning, you know, about the liberation movement in Vietnam, learning about the victory there. And then moving on from that and understanding how we can't really understand white supremacy without understanding Marxism, capitalism, without understanding the system of white supremacy as being rooted as in a ruling class project of domination and exploitation of us to super exploit us, so we can provide the profits and the hegemony for these decaying empires of the West.
Yeah, exactly. Danny, we've been talking about, you know, racism, and, you know, the brief history of racism and how we are having to deal with this, and also the anti-white racism discourse.
Yeah.
So what's your take about
racism? What's my take? All right, so that there is a really growing trend that's very problematic across the political spectrum in the United States, and it's called colorblindness. And that's where this reverse racism narrative comes out of. It's this idea that because the United States is now post-racial, after the Civil Rights Movement, the election of Barack Obama, that somehow racism is not really a problem anymore. It's just an idea in somebody's head. It's just ideas. And so to talk about racism now is actually just attacking white people. It's just attacking so-called white workers now. And this became a huge problem under Donald Trump, where everyone was trying to figure out, oh my gosh, these white working class people, they're so disgruntled that they're just going to vote for Donald Trump, right? Nobody wanted to talk about the actual character of racism, because colorblindness had ruled the day for more than 8 years in the United States, and arguably for longer than that. So really, you know, this whole idea of reverse racism, the idea that we live in a post-racial society, is really a reflection of an attempt by the ruling class to
Who in their right mind ever thought it was a post-racial society? I mean, truly and really.
Yeah, I mean, Jesus God.
Really, nobody is paying any attention at all.
The United States is post-racial?
Yeah, here.
And I was just about to write in, the all lives matter trope goes along with that, where it's being used to say that no Black lives matter. You know? And yeah, I mean, who on earth would think that there's no racism
ridiculous.
in the U.S.?
Somebody who's not paying attention.
It's gone.
Yeah.
To reorient itself, to create a new kind of propaganda where the actual structural roots of racism, the fact that we have the U.S. military literally destroying non-white countries all over the world based on white supremacist ideology, and you have a situation in the United States where you know, I'm sure you all were talking a bit about this, whether it's Hawaii, whether it's indigenous people across what's called the United States at this point. I think this includes those folks who, the Mexicans who had their land colonized in the 19th century. The fact that there are persistent and worsening, growing problems when it comes to race. And it's a class contradiction, right? And so I always say that if you are not willing to speak up about racism, then you are not fighting a class struggle, because in the actual reality of any kind of working class struggle in the United States, you are always going to find instances of like the bosses, employers, corporations, whatever you want to call them, they love racism. They stoke it all the time. They actually literally create workplaces that are institutionally racist, in the sense that you will have white workers with a certain status in workplaces, and Black workers and non-white workers being super exploited in other areas of the economy, of the workplace. Literally, black men makes 56 cents of every dollar that a...
I didn't know that black people make 50, or black men make 56 cents for every dollar. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That is astonishing to me.
Yeah.
White male worker makes. Like, that's how relevant racism is.
Basically,
you literally have...
Basically, that is where all of the upper positions... I mean, it's not that there aren't poor white people.
Yeah.
It's that there aren't wealthy people of color.
Yeah. Wait, Danny Haifong, such a good writer, and if you haven't... Oh, yeah. Danny Haifong's written with Roberto Sirvent a book called American Exceptionalism, American Innocence. That's a couple of years old now, but that's really great. And I hope he writes... He's probably writing another book, but I hope he does. And he does great writing for the Black Agenda Report. So I think it's blackagendareport.com. So if you check that out, I'm sure everybody in the chat is aware of Black Agenda Report. Anyway, let's see. And if you haven't subscribed to EJ's channel, Non-Compete, and I put a link in the live chat, and also Luna Roy's channel, they sort of tend to go onto one another's channel. They're partners, and they talk about all kinds of excellent things. And Non-Compete does these great he does these great pre-recorded videos. They do a lot of live chats, but he does these great educational things on socialism, communism, etc. And it's capitalism. It's just I just find them to be really, really informative, and I learn a lot, because I don't really know. I need to know a lot more, a lot more than I do about Marxist-Leninist theory. And okay, yeah, I'll have some of that. And so anyway, for anybody who thinks, and I hope you do, who thinks that capitalism is a shit show, and it's we're at the end stage, and it's just fascism from now on, basically. I mean, that's the capitalism, fascism is really basically end stage capitalism. I think that's how it goes. If we don't want it to just all sort of devolve into that, we really have to reject the whole system of capitalism. So so it's good to watch these videos by American Johnson and find out about dialectical materialism and how we can actually, not in an idealistic way, but in a real way, to get to that end stage, move away from this ecocidal death drive machine of capitalism. To be able to survive, even, we're going to have to reject that. Anybody who cannot see that isn't paying attention at this point, because this is why one of the reasons we're on the edge of extinction is because of this dreadful capitalism. So, and I'm sure everybody in the chat probably already knows that. And sometimes, there was somebody they had on, I think it was Vera. Vera was on she's a trans activist who was on American Johnson's YouTube channel, and she was talking about, she asked somebody one day, what was the thing that happened that you realized that this system is going to kill you? And I just thought that was just such a great question, because there is a point in people's lives in this capitalist system where you actually realize that the system is going to kill you, and they, eventually it's coming for you, and it doesn't matter what color you are, it doesn't matter, sort of any of that. It's taking out the minorities, and then it's coming for the white people, and it's going to kill everybody. And of course, non-human animals, which don't even factor into anything because most of us aren't vegan, they're of course just irrelevant in the whole picture, but they're the ones that unfortunately are suffering currently and will be wiped out too, as this ecocidal system just lurches its way to in this unhinged way to take us to the edge of extinction. So anyway, but I just thought that was a great question. What was the and I think for a lot of people, probably in the United States in particular, because their country, unlike Australia, the government did some sort of looking after people, giving them, sort of social support during COVID. That hasn't really happened in the United States. So COVID is just one of gazillions of examples of how the government feels about the public. They do not care one iota, and they don't care if most people die, particularly those who are immunosuppressed or old or black people. They're probably rubbing their hands together that a lot of 3 times more black people die from COVID. That's probably makes a lot of white supremacists very happy. So, that's another reason why this whole anti-vaxxer thing, dumping shit on the actual vaccine, even though it keeps people out of ICU, the majority of people out of ICU, to me is pretty, almost, you could say almost racist, because, when you think about how many black people, right, die in relationship to white people, and people of color overseas, BIPOC people in general, people in other countries in the global south that have not been able to get the vaccine because we hold the patents, because we're assholes. The West holds the patents. That's,
well, the corporations hold the patents.
That's right. The corporations hold the patents. That's what I mean when I say we, but So anyway, I just think it's something to think about when people go on and try and conflate all the different issues, Fauci and everything else, and mash it into the vaccine thing as if it's all bad. There are some things that are bad. There's nuance to the whole thing. Big pharma's bad. The vaccine works. It does work. I'm sorry. But and there are lots of other things.
Perfect,
governments,
but a lot of medicines aren't.
That's right. There's a lot of there are side effects from every medicine that we take, and on and on and on. There's so many issues. It's nuanced, and unfortunately, people are just rigid and want to make a point, and there's a confirmed bias, and they're not going to listen to anything. I don't even try and engage anymore with people on that. Anyway, sorry.
One of the things you were saying before about end-stage capitalism. Whenever we talk about end-stage capitalism, it just reminds me, brings back up the fact that capitalism has always worked on the basis of one person exploiting other people and taking a certain amount of the profit of the work, because they own resources and means of production. And it's like you have, I don't know, singing contests or something like that, or talent contests, where you have some local one and people then go on to do a regional one, and they go on to do a national one, and then they might go and do an international one. And it's like that with capitalism, because capitalism is also about competition. It's true, but in competition, somebody wins. And so you get these people who are exploiting locally, and then you get one who's really good, and he manages to exploit more people, and then he takes over the ones he wins over the other exploiters, and is able to take over their resources and means of production. And we see this incredible concentration in industry again and again and again, where as you end up with these capitalists who are local capitalists, become regional capitalists, become national capitalists, become global capitalists, and it's concentrated to such an extent that these people like Bezos or what's his name from Microsoft, Bill Gates, and stuff like that. These people have so much money that they have far more economic power than many, many nations. Particularly anyone in the nations in the global south. And they have the ability to control huge amounts of resources and huge amounts of land, and they use that power to gather more and more power. And it's a concentration game. It's a pyramid sort of game where it almost inverts. While there's fewer and fewer people at the top, they own more and more. It's like their ownership is an inverted pyramid, although the actual number of people who own it is like a pyramid until you get to the top, and there's hardly any. There's a handful of people who own and control so much.
Yeah, with that book Giants, which I still haven't read.
Yeah,
Didi.
That's an excellent book.
Giants.
But I mean,
by the guy from Project Censored. Yep, go on.
The thing is, when it gets to that point, they end up using nations to clamp down on people and keep grinding them for because if you're in that kind of competition, you have to put everything into it. And everything into it means exploiting every last ounce of energy out of everyone who works for you, or rents from you, or has to buy your stuff, or whatever. It's like maximizing every skerrick of profit you can from everything, so you can compete with these other mega wealthy giants.
Yeah.
And the only way you're going to be able to do that is fascism.
Yeah.
And that's what that thing of end stage capitalism always ends up in fascism means.
Yeah. That book Giants, it's by Peter Phillips. It's called Giants: The Global Power Elite by Peter Phillips. So that's a really great book. And Abby Martin did an interview with Peter Phillips about that. And we might see you before in the next few days. During this holiday period where a lot of people find it really, really difficult to deal with the family. And this is probably the first Christmas where there's nobody left in my immediate family. Everybody's dead now. And why are you laughing, Dee Dee? I'm really upset about. There's Mum. I really miss Mum, but it's
you have some relations,
but basically
the grandchildren, and they're awful.
Yeah. Unfortunately, I have some relatives, and it's not pleasant.
We don't talk about.
So basically, I'm familyless except for Dee Dee and a few sort of friends. And people that we
it's
and
intentional
friends
online
all
the way, except for my daughter.
But it's sort of interesting. This is a different Christmas for me, sort of thing. Different holiday period.
No negativity.
But anyway, it's always a difficult time, and for a lot of people, there's very few people that don't have a dysfunctional family. And then it's like you're thrown together often with complete strangers, really, because you don't have anything in common. And I've often said to Dee Dee, I sometimes feel, how with non-human animals, when they give birth, they eventually the mother tries to push the little cats away from the animals, that tries to push them away.
If they're solitary animals.
Yeah, if they're solitary
herd animals or flock animals.
Yeah. But they tend to, that's right. That's true. So this is a specific instance where they don't want sort of incestuous stuff going on, so they end up pushing them away. And I wonder if inside humans, even though we're very much community creatures, I sometimes wonder whether there's this impetus to want to just, when you're in a family, everybody needs to get the hell out. You know what I mean?
I think
and you end up being stuck together.
That's an easy idea to, kind of
that we shouldn't be
and bring to your heart if you have a family. That isn't great.
Yeah.
I think some people really do have good families.
Oh, sure.
that
I'm not saying people
loving,
don't.
But
I'm just saying.
I think it's the
how
exception.
many people though, Dee Dee?
I think it's the exception rather than the rule.
Sure, but how many people do you come across, Dee Dee, that say, "Gosh, my family's great, and we all get on so great"? How many people do you come across that say that?
Very few.
It's just not a happening thing. I know there are people, and I think it's great when you come across them. But if you thought that TV was representative of how things are in society, you would think that everybody thinks family is everything, and everybody gets on great, and we all support one another all the time.
And if you ever have difficulties,
you fix it up
sit there
immediately.
And talk to each other, and then it's all resolved.
Yeah, that's right. Everything always gets resolved on TV.
She's the last of 6.
Oh,
so
the
I'm
last of
assuming
6.
that means that her siblings have all gone.
Yeah. And Michael says, I've never been very close to most of my family. I've always felt like a stranger among them. Oh, that's really sad, Michael.
Yeah.
Yeah, pretty much I have too. And I'm adopted, so that doesn't help. That compounds things. But
I'm like that.
Apart from my mother and father, who were very good to me. We had our problems, but they were very good to me. But apart from that, it's like I felt like a complete stranger in amongst. Yeah. And I've been treated kind of that way too, haven't I, Dee Dee, basically? It's a weird thing, which I won't go into.
Awful family.
Dee Dee's had a horror story of a family situation. Makes mine.
And I left home very early. So.
Yes. Yes.
And have
it was
had very
really,
little to do with any of my family since.
really bad.
Yeah.
You were a little unhoused person for a while, weren't you, Didi? Living in trees and all sorts of things.
I was free. It was the 60s.
Didi had to leave home because her father was very abusive. Very.
Yeah. I was free. It was the 60s.
It's a good way to look at it, Didi. You were free, but you got really basically abused by your father, and your mother was having a nervous breakdown.
Yeah.
Wasn't she?
Yeah.
So anyway, there's a lot of people have lots of baggage with families, and it's really not fun. Like I would rather, truly and really, when we had a stint.
Yeah, Michael says he's never been very close to most of his family.
No, I just read that out.
And Omar said that a lot of people have very, very abusive families.
Yeah, I would rather have eaten a bag of hair than attend a family function. Seriously and really. And I had to for a while.
In the later period, anyway.
I know.
Was it always like that? No.
In my younger days, when it was at our place, when the Christmas things were at our place, and it was okay when I was a child.
Yeah.
But when I got to teenager and beyond, it all kind of when you individuate, a lot of parents don't deal with that very well.
Yeah.
When you have opinions and stuff like that.
Yeah.
That's why I can't shut up on the internet, because basically no one ever listened to me and ignored me and didn't care about my feelings. That was pretty much the thing. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm not really. But anyway, So anyhow, we totally get it. You know, if this is probably the least a fun time of year for people, I think.
For many people. I remember,
there's a lot of people that love it for the presents and stuff like that. But
I remember in the 80s we used to arrange these orphan parties, and they're a great idea. I mean, I'm not suggesting people do it during COVID, but
how to knock off a bunch of orphans. So many
people I knew had problematic relationships with their family. We used to arrange, like, somebody would do a holiday breakfast, and somebody would do a holiday brunch, and somebody else would do a holiday lunch, like a champagne breakfast, a Christmas brunch, a Christmas lunch, an afternoon sort of thing, an evening party, and there would be rolling parties in the community. And it meant that people could go to parties, and then if they needed to go visit family, they could go do that. But they wouldn't miss out. They'd also get the support of people who cared about them.
Oh, I wish I knew you then. Then we could have had it. We could have had a orphans party thing.
We used to do that in
Didi had the best parties,
and it was great, because those people who really didn't have any family could just go from party to party to party to party.
Yeah.
And what a good way to spend the holidays.
Oh, now you're getting all teary. Oh, sweetie. Oh, anyway,
it's a good thing to do.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to do to...
it is. Because family doesn't have to be blood.
Yeah.
In fact, oftentimes it isn't. Family is actually just people who care about you.
In the queer community, we are family.
Well, that's right. Yeah. Yes. And if you're queer, it's not fun. And you always have that... I've always had that constant disapproval right throughout my life, being queer and stuff. And that, it gets tiring always being on the outer, even though there's not been a moment where I thought there was anything wrong with me.
Yeah.
And I always used to think, what the hell is wrong with people? I don't get it. I found it funny.
Yeah.
That people were homophobic and stuff. But anyway, and transphobic, I find that really odd too. But anyhow, we're getting off the track here, so let's...
diversity is wonderful. If people aren't celebrating diversity, there's something wrong.
Yeah. I always feel
I really remember
relieved.
That quote, that societies where people are rigid, authoritarian, and kind of very, very black and white are the ones people want to escape. And societies which are diverse and welcoming and creative, those are the ones people want to go to.
Yeah. I mean, we feel much better about Tasmania now that there's more people from different backgrounds here. Hey, Didi, because Tasmania, when we got here,
it was very,
very white, and I'd say it was much whiter before we got here too, and we've been here 13 years.
Very Scots-Irish.
But now it's like it's getting really interesting, isn't it, Didi?
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, let's sort of have a look more of this.
Tasmania also was one of the last states to decriminalize homosexuality.
Yeah.
And then proceeded to have some of the most liberal laws
Yes.
in the country. And it's been the last state to decriminalize transvestism and kind of laws that affect trans people, and now has world-leading legislation.
Yes, and Didi was part of that world-leading legislation because she did most of the writing of the legislation. She did a lot of that.
Shh.
What? Why?
Oh,
You don't want me to blow your horn for you?
no.
Why not?
Why?
Somebody's got to. Anyway, let's have a look. Sort of more of this.
Black people being imprisoned.
And by the way, oh my! I just saw one of our chairs go flying across the yard. Jesus, it's very windy.
It's very windy.
And 3 times their amount in the population compared to white people, where it's not even close.
Because you need to get, we need to have some happiness in life and not always be fixated on the shit show that is all around us and stuff. So this is why living here is so lovely, because it's so beautiful, isn't it, Didi?
Yeah.
And it's just all natural and beautiful trees and all the things for me that are what is real in the world.
Yeah.
What is something I value and treasure is non-human animals and the trees and the beautiful hills and
Kim
stuff.
says peaceful when I'm not at home.
Oh, good. Peaceful
That's
when you're not at
sad
home.
situation.
If
I'm
only
so
you
sorry
could.
for
If
you.
only little cats could be taken out and about. You could basically just walk around with them, and they wouldn't get attacked by dogs or whatever. You could just
Or
kind of
freaked out.
take them out like you would hanging out with your little dog buddy or something. It would be so great to be able to do that. I sometimes think how much fun it would be to be able to take them out and just hang out with them in places without them getting
Without
frightened.
necessarily having harnesses and all that.
Yeah, without having harnesses and stuff like that, in the public spaces and stuff like that. But anyway, have a lovely, have sweet dreams, Kim. And so we might continue on with this before this becomes I don't know how long have we been going now. It's been a long time.
Before this becomes a goodbye to everybody. They drop off to sleep.
Yeah. Okay.
Right? That is the reality of white supremacy in the real world. And those who want to play this,
Back to white
you're just dividing people by talking about this. You're dividing the working class. They're not interested in the working class. They're interested in some kind of electoral scheme, some kind of opportunity where they can take advantage of a troubling political trend, which is a huge rightward shift in the United States and all of its Western client states, and how that rightward shift is turning into complicity and complacency with a growing number of people who are turning to right-wing politics to explain this decaying political situation and economic situation in the United States.
Oh, I don't know. Who would that be? About a half a dozen YouTubers. Leftist YouTubers starting to go that way.
Yeah.
But that really is just defeatism. And so any kind of room or any kind of acceptance or defensiveness around talking about racism as a class struggle is simply defeatism. And I have been very clear from the very beginning that there is a liberal strand of politics that seeks to exploit race in order to forward the political ends, let's say, of the Democratic Party. So-called identity politics. We can't, of course, that's not even questionable, right? That's just the reality. But to go so far then to negate the very existence of racism it's just a right deviation, right? In the old Marxist term, it's like a right deviation. You're literally just moving to the right in order to explain a situation that actually requires a revolutionary solution, intervention.
It's funny when you bring up when you sort of defend...
Rejection of identity politics is just racist.
Yeah, but when you bring this up, oh God, you get people really going for you, really, it's truly astonishing to me that this is even a thing, but apparently it is.
People basically are just saying, I don't give a shit about those people.
Yeah, that's right. It's once again... all kind of white focused, all sort of the heteronormative, cisgendered white focus.
I don't care about those people.
Yeah, exactly. And the thing is that the liberal identity politics. So like those people, they are making use of our identity to serve their agenda, and it's very disgusting. And about a few months ago, I had a video about the pink-wash imperialism, talking about how the organization from the USA, such as like the USAID, the USAID, is using the LGBTQ plus community in Vietnam to bring in the capitalist hegemony. And the thing is that like the thing that upset me the most is actually I got attacked by leftists from the USA because I dare to speak up like, hey, Vietnam has a candidate that is exactly like Pete Buttigieg. Like he's gay, he's hot, and
he's gay and he's hot.
He's hot.
I had to laugh when she said he's hot.
Thing, yeah.
What the?
and he just like whoop freaking imperialism. And I got attacked because I dare to point that out. So like it's something that got ingrained real deep inside the mindset of lots of people, especially leftists. So how are we gonna address that? Panel, I want to ask you, how are we gonna address that? Have any of you have any idea?
I have some ideas, but obviously people can feel free to disagree. But I think that I think it's worth talking about how racist white leftists are, because it's a problem. And I think like in the US, like people of color are constantly like when people talk about oh my gosh, dual consciousness, like that black people have. It's like you're always like seeing yourself through the eyes of how white people see you. So there's a way where you can't escape talking about white people, because we are suffering under white supremacy, and the people who are perpetuating it the most are white people. So we kind of have to talk about like racism, and this includes white leftists, unfortunately, because you would hope that they could just be our allies and stand in solidarity instead of pulling some of the bullshit that they try to pull every single week on Twitter. But here we are. And I think that, yes, let's talk about it. This is going to come up. But I do believe that I think the best thing we can do is actually try to gather around other BIPOC people, and not just like BIPOC people who truly that we want to have solidarity with queer communities, trans communities, disabled communities, and people who are very serious about not being racist and also transphobic and all these other things, who are against these systems of oppression, and just try to cultivate these communities and really put our attention there, because white people are not, I just don't expect them to change. And some people have said that this is very doomer, and I don't think it's doomer. I just think it's like a pattern. Like we've seen this. People have been talking about the issues of even white leftists, white liberals, the issue of them being racist, and they just, at this point, it's clear they don't want to listen, and we can't make them. So I kind of think moving on is just trying to cultivate the communities that we want to see. And then for white leftists who do want to, be a part of that, and they actually do, like, let's go. But I don't want to, I think it's not a great use of our time trying to convince them of anything, because they just don't care. And that's just my opinion.
Can someone tell me where this Let's Go thing started coming in? Because I notice everybody starts using it. Now, I'm not talking about Let's Go Brandon. I'm just talking about Let's Go. Everybody seems to be saying Let's Go. Where did that come from?
It comes from Let's Go Brandon, I think.
Does it?
Is it just code for fuck you?
I don't think so. I don't think
that's the way
she just said
it.
She just said it, Let's Go. I don't think she meant, well, fuck you.
Well, I think Let's Go is an expression.
I know, but it's something that's now become like a thing, like Let's Go Brandon.
I think it's because of the Let's Go Brandon thing.
Oh, you think?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Why else would it suddenly become so much more popular?
I don't know.
Omar's going off.
Oh, okay. Do you think we should stop this, or we should keep going? Who's interested in it continuing on? I don't know. I'm hoping that these snippets are kind of interesting.
I think they're really interesting.
Okay.
Well, then it's the middle of the day.
Let's just do it because we're here. What?
It's the middle of the day here.
Yeah, that's true.
It's only 3:00.
Yeah. Anyway, we can just keep going, and if anybody's interested, they can watch this.
Filter away. They can watch. We're left talking to ourselves.
That's right. We can just you can watch it later on if you're interested. Okay.
Well, I'll jump in. I think there are many different things that could be done to address this big issue. But, I think the point is very valid. And this is something that we're going to struggle with. I mean, the white left, I don't even know if we can call it a white left, because there really is no organization, white political organization that can really happen that's left, right? But you have white people who consider themselves leftists, who then go into political spaces and do what they do. And a lot of the times, it can be very disruptive. And I've been in many situations where that's the case. But at the same time, I think that one of the big problems we have right now is, in the United States at least, is that the most revolutionary movements that have existed in the United States, that's the Black Freedom Movement, Black Liberation Movement, the Indigenous people's movements, they are, in a big, serious retreat. It's been a real coordinated campaign of destruction on the part of the U.S. government to ensure that really the most revolutionary sections of this society are unable to provide that leadership that we need so badly right now. And so that's where you have
Holy Toledo, is never a truer word was spoken that we need leadership in so many areas. Oh my God.
Yeah.
We all look like people after the Titanic's halfway under the thing and we're all flapping around in the water. Well, that's what it looks like to me.
It's where I think, the people who are, oh God, what do you call it?
Does it look like that to anybody else? It looks like that to me.
Third worldists basically say the revolution's coming from third world because those people can actually see the enemy and get organized.
Yeah.
And people in the West are just all over the freaking place.
Yeah.
People in the
they're either leaning.
It's hard to keep the ex-colonial countries.
I keep seeing people in the West hanging on, Didi.
Countries.
I keep seeing people or leftists in the West keep holding on to, they've all want to hang on to capitalism, so they want to kind of patch it up and put a happy face on it.
This is
and they
left
can't
in
see
the sense of the vague liberal left.
Not even that.
Vaush.
I mean, people. No. There's even like real leftists who haven't actually seen outside of capitalism. And I don't know.
Get rid of it, and you have to take.
They think that we're stuck with it,
Take
Didi.
the stuff off people.
Didi? They think that we're stuck with it, and there isn't anything else. They don't. They can't. They don't. I don't know if they don't know of anything else, or they can't imagine a society without it.
Yeah.
And so they're kind of trying to keep, like Carl Kalinske is an example of that. Although I think that the system serves him, he's making probably $30,000 a month or more,
Sure.
and so why would he want to get rid of a system
Sure.
which he might suffer financially?
I remember somebody saying,
He's a sock dem.
that when they found all of the people talking about, they did interviews with all the people talking about how horrible the revolution in Russia was, I think it was, and they on questioning them, they found that the people who really hated the revolution and didn't just have problems with bureaucracy and power structures and stuff like that were the people who previously had multiple houses and big holdings and stuff like that and lost all of that, had it taken away.
Yeah.
And the thing is, you have to take it away. I hear sometimes people talking about, oh, well, we can nationalize this and we'll just have to compensate the corporations. I think, well, if you're compensating the corporation, they haven't lost a frickin' thing.
Compensate the corporations? Who said
that's
that?
like compensate. Who
said that,
Haiti
Didi?
had to compensate France.
Oh, yes, Vietnam had
for
to pay
becoming
back.
free
Oh.
and eliminating slavery. I mean, excuse me, I was getting excited again. for F's sake, sit there and tell people, oh, well, you've rejected slavery and stopped being slaves. You're going to have to pay the slave owners for their losses. I mean, Jesus, that's why you want to bring back guillotines. Honest to God.
Yeah.
You can't have a revolution. I mean, like Luna talks about revolution in Vietnam, and they took away people's who had big properties, and divided it up.
Yeah,
That's the only way it works.
Her family was actually very wealthy in Vietnam, and they had that taken away from them. But
Well,
then
I think some of her family was
no, they were actually her father or something was the richest.
grandfather, I think.
Was it? And then they had that taken away, but then they all got like what everybody else got, which was they got some land, and 90% of people in Vietnam at this point have got houses.
Relatives who were fighting, for the communists and that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, unless you like just take the stuff away from these people.
Yeah.
You have to take away the land and resources and power and money from people like Gates and Bezos and
Yeah.
You just have to take it away.
Yeah.
You have to take away the corporations from the stockholders, basically.
Yeah, yeah.
And nationalize them. And
Yeah.
you don't give anything back. You don't compensate them.
No.
You know, they can be like everybody else.
Yeah, well, corporations become parasites. Anyway,
Because inherited wealth is insane.
Yeah.
I mean, I've known a few people who inherited wealth. I mean, I've talked to you about Megan Hill, who was a scion of the Lloyd family, and she got $1 million every year
yeah,
play money, basically,
Yeah.
because she wasn't competent.
yeah.
So they just gave her $1 million and say, go off and do stuff.
I wish somebody would give me $1 million and I pretend to be
Bass,
incompetent.
who is Bass Oil, I mean, he got about $6 million a year, which he was told, well, you can do what you like with it. It can all be a tax write-off.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how rich these people
yes,
are.
yes.
Yeah, these are the people they don't trust.
Yeah, it's change.
And it's criminal. It's insane.
Yeah.
To think that those people, and I'm talking about he was getting $6 million a year in the 70s.
Yes, so that'd be heaps.
In the 70s.
Yeah, so that'd be, multiply that by 7 or 8.
Yeah.
Probably.
Yeah.
So that's a huge, and money went a lot further then.
It certainly
Oh, Jesus,
did.
Nandi. Nandi stuck his
it
claw into
was-
my leg.
You know, you just need to take it off these people.
Yeah.
Because unless you redistribute the wealth in some way, unless you actually decide to take this back and say, this is society's, we will never have any change.
Yeah.
And they will fight tooth and nail and, claw to maintain their power.
Yeah.
Because it's their power. And they have the power to hire mercenary armies and shit. So we have to be serious about overthrowing these fuckers.
Yeah. I just don't know how, without it being
people in
bloody.
the West don't want to think about that.
I don't know how it's going to happen without it being bloody. Is what in the United States anyway. I don't think it can in the United States. No, it's really, really, really ugly, and I can't see how you could actually change anything without it being awful.
I think even in places like Ecuador
of course,
and Bolivia, it doesn't happen without it getting a bit bloody.
Yeah.
Maybe it's not so bloody as it would
even
have
if
to be
all
in
the young
US.
people who are already, a lot of young people are leaning towards socialism, even if lots of people, it's still going to be bloody. Do you know what I mean?
You can't vote it in.
No, you can't vote it in. Anyway, we should keep watching this.
Of white leftists, and honestly, their complicity in promoting, right, being so, on the one hand, racist, as you said, Professor Flash, like literally.
Racist white leftists. Yeah, there's a lot of them. That's what I've discovered.
There are.
I mean, not that any white person, and myself included, don't have problems because we've been indoctrinated, brought up in I was brought up in a very white area. Everybody pretty much was white at school. It was white, and you don't realize how privileged you are until you get out into the world. And even then, because Australia actually was, even though it was multicultural, it was also like some suburbs and other suburbs, very white. And I mean, you can't help but
Tasmania was
have problems.
White
You
when
can't
we
help.
first got here.
You can't help but have problems if you're a white person. You have to. There are things you have to deconstruct in your life. On regular. But it's like Ajama Baraka said. From the Black Agenda Report, he said that every day he has to address his sexism because that's the society he's brought up in. He's a man in a patriarchal society, and there's a lot of misogyny around, and he says every day he has to dismantle his sexism. And EJ from American Johnson from Non-Compete says every day he has to dismantle things about his upbringing. He was brought up in South Carolina, and he has to look at, he's been
racism, the whole
the patriotism and all that sort of stuff. I mean, you get indoctrinated with American exceptionalism when you're in the United States and pledging allegiance to the flag, which is so closely incorporated to this idea of God and all that kind of stuff. So, really like racist. It's very easy to be a racist white leftist.
Carl says, will Uncle Sam get a bloody nose? I think Uncle Sam needs to be guillotined, basically.
Uncle Sam, yeah.
In political spaces and in their politics.
I'm talking
and then
metaphorically.
Also, you have the ruling class, right? The white ruling class. They've cultivated, as you were talking, Luna, you were talking about these figures, right? They've cultivated a leadership among, a Black Agenda Report we call it the Black Misleadership class. Around the world, it's called like neocolonialism, but there is this leadership, this class that stands in between the white ruling class and the masses of people. And there's
somebody called Royal Jenkins in the in the stream, and I cannot see their comments. Oh, there you go. I can see. Yes, the United States is making machines like the Terminator. Yeah, those little robot dogs that will have little weapons around them, and then when the protests happen, they can just send them out and spray the protesters with bullets. Hey, Didi, that's the dystopian future that I mean, it's right out of it is right out of the Terminator. What's that?
And drones, flying drones.
And drones, yeah, drones dropping gas and all sorts of things. Yeah. Yes, it's a nice little dystopian future we've all created for ourselves on this beautiful planet. Isn't it insane? The sort of the people with the death drive, that don't care about anything that's nice, that care about them only themselves, want to ignore and destroy this beautiful planet for some power and and some nice mansions and some big yachts and stuff. And fuck the rest of us. This is the sort of...
I'm going to pass this on, Trishy.
Yeah.
They keep talking about...
Oh, Didi.
People are ambitious, and people should be ambitious.
Can't make that... Come over here. I can't pass that on, Didi. Now listen, just bring that stuff over, darling. She's got to say it.
People are ambitious and should, quote unquote, be ambitious. But I don't think that's actually true. I think most people, their ambition really kind of ends at having enough, being comfortable, and being able to have kind of a life where they're not, scrabbling for food or, desperate to get medical health care.
Yeah.
Without going broke, and being able to spend time with other people, and being able to talk, and being able to go off with their dog or enjoy having a cat in their lap or whatever.
Well, we don't want to have that, Didi. We don't want to have domesticated animals.
Have that, but
go on.
That's what most people really want.
Well, they want everybody. Well, everybody wants to feel like they're relevant, that they're included. That the child who embraces the village that doesn't embrace the child's going to burn down the village to feel its warmth. I think there's far more people like that now that want to burn down the village because they've felt excluded and uncared for, and because
they are excluded.
And unfortunately, you can take two roads. You can either try and make it better, or you can want to burn it down and kill everybody and then maybe take over. There's there's probably more than that, but you know what I mean. It's sort of that kind of thing at this point, I think. And a lot of people are unfortunately going to the place where they want power, and they want it in a bad way, and they want it in a stompy fascist way, and because they've been excluded or abandoned by governments and whatever. And unfortunately, with that tends to go that I'm going to stomp on every vulnerable group there is. I'm going to fuck things up for other people, not for the people that cause the suffering, the people in positions of power. I'm going to fuck things up for any vulnerable person. It's that projection of how animals, when they're stressed out, and this is humans too, you're stressed out and you end up taking it out on the closest person to you rather than the external catalyst, you know what I mean? The external catalyst that caused it, looking to that is the problem. I mean, animals display that, non-human animals display that all the time. If there's sometimes, with groups of cats, if there's another cat outside so something that is threatening outside, they'll end up taking it out on the other animal that's inside the house with them because they see that threat from outside. Well, we're not that much different in many ways from, we're an animal like non-human animals, and that's the kind of shit we do, except that, like if we don't have empathy, and I think there's been a big empathectomy that's happened due to neoliberalism, where people have been robbed of their empathy by this constant blaming of other, through the corporate media owned most by Murdoch and other right-wing conservative awful figures, that empathy has just been taken away or has been relinquished by people, and without empathy, without being able to see ourselves in other people, how on earth can we how on earth can we have any community that we care? I mean, if we don't care about other people, we're not going to be able to build communities. We're not going to want communities. And neoliberalism and capitalism focuses on I, and I want, I need, and I've got mine and you don't have yours, so fuck you. That's, anyway. Oh yeah, Sherry Honkler from Poor People's Army, Holly, yeah, she's really great. So I'm gonna play some more of this. I don't know how to eat this without it sort of chomping in people's...
Without crunching.
That's not possible. You might have to turn your mic off, Dee Dee. Anyway, so I'm going to have to do that. Okay.
Do the bidding of the ruling class. And so we have that situation that's very difficult to approach, because you will have white liberals, for example, come after people like myself or others who raise issues with, let's say, a Kamala Harris, Barack Obama, and they'll say, well, you're just racist, right, for bringing up these issues, while completely rejecting the fact that it is the confluence of ruling class interests, which Kamala Harris and Barack Obama are part of, which have created this situation and all of these instances of oppression, the worsening conditions for people of color, for Black people, for Indigenous people. Like that, they're at the center of it, but it's the ruling class which really dictates the interests of all the politicians, Black, white, or otherwise, who are really in the driver's seat. And so how we address this is, I mean, we have to tell the truth first and foremost. We have to tell the truth about the situation. But I do agree that we need to also be able to focus where we really should be. Like, we all have our roles to play. Not all of us are going to be organizing, let's say, the Black liberation movement. Like Black people are going to be the ones to figure that out. But we do have to tell the truth. We do have to stand by principles, and we do have to be able to, on questions of empire, questions of class, questions of white supremacy, we have to be able to try to build a broad, front of people who are willing to confront power on serious demands, right? And so I think that there is just multiple levels and layers from which this work has to happen, and we're all going to play our part, I think, in making that happen. But unfortunately, in terms of the first question, about colorblindness, reverse racism, and this idea that just talking about race is an attack. I mean, if we're starting at that level, then we have a lot of work to do, and we have a lot of really tiring. I mean, I'm tired. I'm really tired of having that kind of conversation, right? Because we really are. That's really starting at square one, and that's where I really agree with you, Professor Faz. Like, we do have to be building with people who are already there, who are already ready to be in this fight, because those folks who are like not willing to stand up on certain issues relating to white supremacy, like we will be literally throwing, we'll be throwing tennis balls at brick walls, essentially, right? Like it's just going to bounce right back.
Unfortunately, there's a lot of people, and like I've said to Dee Dee, I feel like from what I see now online, I'm just talking about the online left, and I use that word left loosely. I feel like at this point, it to me looks like a carnival. It looks more performative than, and this has taken a couple of years for me to sort of really see it, just watching a number of channels for a while. The online left has become more of a performative space than anything, and I'm not really sure how, to some degree it's educational. Some channels are more educational than others, but on the whole, it seems more like a performance to me.
Yeah, I think the performative aspect is something that's grown. I think that the informative thing is still there, and there are certain channels that are just interested in the informative thing, and they understand the difference between the informative and actually organizing.
Yeah.
And then there are other channels who just get caught up in the informative. I mean, in the performative, and that's their jam. And the performative channels often do better because it's a performance.
Yeah.
And they're interested in the performance.
I don't actually think it started off though with that motivation in mind of it being a performance, but it's become
something that's developed
because of money. Because of the money gets thrown at them.
Well, yeah, absolutely. I think there's that
when they're dramatic.
Yeah, I think as they do a good performance and they get money, the pressure is to become more and more performative.
Yeah.
And increasingly, I think people see online as the way to connect
Yeah.
instead of connecting. The idea of connecting with a group that's actually going to work on socialist organizing in any very real, physical, active sense.
Yeah.
I don't think you see that anywhere near as much. I mean, previously you'd see, like the famous sort of people meeting in a cafe, and talking about revolution and that kind of stuff, and possibly organizing something. But
that's the thing, isn't it, though, about the internet? In one way, it's been very helpful for me because I came across veganism through the internet, and also
you get a huge amount of information.
Yeah, and I also came across Abby Martin, and that sort of woke me up to the fact that no, there isn't a good party and a bad party in the US, and everything that stemmed from that, right?
Yeah.
I've been from Australia.
Well, probably things like Chris Hedges. I mean, I don't know, would you have come across Hedges?
No,
without...
being from Australia, though, I mean, we're so propagandized here, even worse than the US in a way.
Yeah.
And coming across some if it hadn't been for the internet, coming across some American leftist journalism, that helped me tremendously. But there's also another thing about online stuff that is it's sort of, we get all lost in online stuff, and online stuff isn't activism like leftist sort of stuff. Like, I think if there wasn't the internet, there'd be a lot more organizing offline, obviously, because there wouldn't be the internet.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. I think you were saying about Australia as being much more propagandized. I think on one hand, it is, you hear fewer views, but I think in the United States, people are swimming in that propaganda, and their mindsets are so into the nationalism. I mean, it's drummed into them from childhood and school.
But now
Australia doesn't have that nationalistic thing. But
not yet.
But things like News Corp, running virtually all of the
News Corp has been
TV, news.
Yeah. They've been indoctrinating
papers,
us for decades.
And they all put out the Murdoch crap.
Yeah, and now even the decent ones like Four Corners, as far as I don't know, I can't really remember what they used to talk about decades ago.
Things like
they,
I do.
No, but listen, they probably, I don't know if they were still propping up the U.S. narrative by not addressing it, you see, which is they won't head on address the imperialist stuff and look at what the U.S. empire is doing all the time. And now they're promoting anti-China propaganda and pushing a war on China. This is probably our best journalist site that was the most probably the most highly regarded
investigative journalist
is
site.
now pushing a war on China. That's how bad it is here in Australia.
Yeah.
It's just so fucking sad.
They would do
the
one
Four
story
Corners.
a week.
We're talking about Four Corners now.
Type thing.
Four Corners used to be something that people could go to, and it was. But I'm saying now, in retrospect, I'm really not sure how much they hid a lot of what U.S. empire was doing. Right?
I don't think they hid as much. Certainly nothing like that do now. Now they prop it up, but they were very good. I mean, I remember things they did about corporate control of fruit and distribution by Chiquita in Queensland and then in Australia, and that kind of thing. It was really good investigative reporting. Chiquita, of course, is United Fruit, who's the Banana Republic, or things on the power industry, the electricity industry, or things about war crimes. I mean, they did stuff about that.
Who? Four Corners?
Four Corners.
Yeah.
Once upon a time,
But do you think they did that as like, oh, look at that crime, that isolated incident?
Because it was a documentary form and it was done by different journalists. They would basically be working on a story for quite some time, and so a different group would come up with a story every week. And they were obviously the fruit of months at least of work investigating a story. So you would get a good story like that.
Yeah.
And it might be an anti-imperialist one. And that was great about
as long as they didn't make those war crimes in quotes like an aberration. This is what I'm wondering. Do you know what I mean? Instead of like looking at it like war is a crime and all of that, you know what I mean, is under the umbrella of the U.S. imperialist
they
war.
John Pilger, but they were they were not
well, look
bad.
at the way Australia treats John Pilger, putting aside Julian Assange, but It's like they don't even know him. All the journalists don't. Did he?
Yeah. Yeah.
Did he? All the journalists don't even refer to him.
Chad had talked about Pilger before.
Oh, right.
Yeah.
They don't even refer to him, and he's like one of our greatest journalists,
Yeah,
and it's just like he doesn't exist. That's how far gone we are here.
Yeah.
So, it's disgusting.
Yeah.
I know I use that word a lot, but it's really hard to find another word for it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Anyway, let's continue on with this.
Okay.
So anyway, that's my
get
opinion on that.
We won't get done. Yes. I don't even know where we are in this. Oh, okay. We're sort of where we've got like I think about 25 minutes left.
She's about
My shirt says
through.
real leftist journalist.
My shirt says "Trapped in America."
Oh, this is funny. Danny Haifong's got this shirt called with "Trapped in America" on it, and everybody says, "Yeah, yeah, yeah, that's right," which I just thought was funny. I like that, the idea of that, "Trapped in America." I often say to people who, like, if you can get out of the United States before 2024, please try, if you can, try and move somewhere else, because I really feel like it is going to be, I don't know about you, but I know, and I'm not saying Donald Trump is some aberration, they're all awful, right? But he just put it in a bit of overdrive. And he's crass, and that's why they didn't like him, because he wasn't a smooth operator that was putting the best foot forward of empire, and wearing cool clothing and speaking smooth and all this kind of stuff. But Donald Trump, like, I feel like he was getting to that point of like bragging about Michael Reynolds, sending out the police to execute him, and then bragging about it. I sort of feel like during that time of Donald Trump, it was really white knuckling it all the way. You just never knew what the hell he was going to. It was like living with some kind of some sort of a, I don't know, just some sort of a deranged parent. You just never knew what he was going to do from one day to the next, and the things that he said and all of that sort of thing. And I feel like it's going to be that times 1,000 if he gets back in, because he's going to see that as some kind of mandate. And look what they put forward from this other part of the duopoly, a man who needs to be guided out of a store because otherwise he'll get lost, and he's had his wife or Kamala Harris with him because you don't know what he might say, or that he might forget people's names, and this is what they put forward. And that just shows how this empire, they can't even keep up any appearances anymore. It's just all coming apart, and they don't give a shit. They don't give a shit that they've got a leader that has got so much power, and he's barely able to string a sentence together. That's how bad it is. Anyway, I've just got to go to the bathroom.
Controllable.
Yeah, but I mean, he can barely. He's probably, after they take him out and put in Kamala Harris or Pete Buttigieg or whatever, he's probably going to they'll take him off those drugs, and he'll probably end up in a nursing home. I feel like he's close to that. Anyway, I'll let you just go. Well, I might turn this. You want to talk for a bit and talk to folks while I go to the...
I'm not sure where... I've just come back from the toilet.
Okay.
So I'm not sure where anybody is up to.
Oh, well, you could just check out the comment section. I won't be a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, Trump is a symptom, but, I mean, he says the right things. He says the right things. I mean, the things he says are stupid. The things he says are inconsistent, sometimes ridiculous, really ignorant at times, but he reflects the emotional space of a lot of people in the U.S. And I hate using the word American because I don't believe that the U.S. is America. Michael Cooper says nothing to worry about. I'm sure Hillary is going to beat Trump. Jesus God, if Hillary Clinton is back in the race, I don't know what's wrong with them. America will put another Hollywood actor as a president. I don't think they need to. I think the next person, if it's not Trump, I think it will be somebody like the governor of Florida, DeSantis, or I keep thinking, I keep waiting really for Eric Prince to throw his hat in the ring. He's another billionaire. He's got
one day my prince will come.
Yeah, my prince will come. What a name! It's just like Trump. Trump, what a wonderful name. He trumps everything. And Eric Prince is the prince, and he's a Christian dominionist.
Oh, is he? I didn't know that. Oh,
yeah. And
okay.
He's got his own army. He's rich. Yeah. He's
Pee Wee Herman. Sorry, Didi.
What's that?
Somebody said Pee Wee Herman.
Reagan has Alzheimer's. Reagan did have Alzheimer's. He was a mess.
Yeah. Yeah, he had Nancy Reagan
he
talking to him.
As Biden.
Did he? He had Nancy Reagan talking to him from behind a tree when he was being interviewed. Nancy Reagan was prompting him from behind a tree.
Yes, it was disgusting.
I was around for that. I saw that Didi left because of Reagan.
I left the country.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, let's continue on with this, Didi.
That's how I feel. That's trapped in America.
Trapped in America. Yeah.
I need one of those.
Oh, Mark Zuckerberg for president. I hope not.
I'm sorry to be appearance focused, but Mark Zuckerberg looks like one of those children from a Steven Spielberg movie with disproportionate eyes and this Russell Brand said and a hairline that's way too high, and he just doesn't look real to me. He looks like almost looks like that comic character that he created for his metaverse thing. You know what I mean? He doesn't look real, does he?
Yeah.
Anyway, hang on a sec.
I had this shirt that said socialism or something, and then this person walked up to me and was like, "You should move," and I was like, "Well, maybe you could pay for it."
People went up to her and said, "Maybe you should move if you don't like it here," and she said, "Well, maybe you can pay for it." I think that's a really great response.
Yeah.
That love it or leave it thing, which is a lot of people, if you're like criticizing the government actually is patriotic.
Yeah.
But now it's seen as, oh, well, if you don't like it, leave it. So yeah, it's un-American, exactly, to criticize the government now.
Thing started with the Palmer raids in the 1920s as a thing of socialism. And at the time, they were criticizing it as the death of any kind of critique and the death of any kind of intellectual freedom. Because the only way you can prove that you are not un-American, it's really hard to prove it a negative, is to prove that you are more American than anybody, and to do that, you have to take all of those tropes and just push it.
Yeah, and that's right.
More bigoted than anybody else. You have to have more flags behind you.
Do they define what American is, or they don't? No, you have to. Yeah.
If you are being accused of being un-American, you cannot disprove it except by showing that you are more American, more fascist, more unthinking, more going along with the narrative than anyone else, and ready to throw anybody else under the bus.
They tried to do that. Oh, that's so un-Australian. Now, if they're using that in terms of that it's not
work here.
No, it doesn't work here now. But there was a point in time where if you were doing, and now I'm putting aside the way Indigenous people have been treated in the past, right?
Yeah.
If you were called if you said if somebody used that, people didn't use the term un-Australian.
They didn't. No.
They didn't. But that would have meant probably then being really unfair to people, right? Now they use it in a term that is sort of like the un-American thing.
Well,
isn't it?
Was John Howard who brought in the Australian values thing.
Oh yeah, what the hell is that?
Migrants had to take a test whether they complied with Australian values.
Yeah.
And that basically, I think, meant you're not a Muslim. That you aren't going to speak some horrible foreign language at home.
Yeah.
That you basically comply with governmental shit. I mean, it's like, the thing is, Australian values are more real Australian values, as I experienced them originally, is the idea of,
multiculturalism.
Fair go.
Yeah.
She'll be right, mate.
Except Indigenous people, unfortunately, and putting aside the Indigenous situation, that was it was sort of seen as a fair go thing.
And I'm as good as you.
Yeah, I'm as good as you. That kind of thing.
Pretty much a very Australian attitude.
Yeah.
And
people were all living in similar suburbs.
To see anybody as special.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter whether they were a prime minister, a movie star, or whatever.
Yeah.
And it's like Kate Blanchett can live in Paddington and people know where she lives. She just lives up the road, and and it's just Kate Blanchett. And,
yeah. There's none of that. There was none of that celebrity obsession stuff, really.
Yeah.
To me, anyway, it didn't seem like that.
Oh, Kate, you're so great. But I mean, it was like, you did a really good job, sort of thing, rather than, oh, it's Kate Blanchett.
Yeah. Anyway, we should get on with this.
We should,
because I'm
Yeah, that's what I always say now too.
Send them the paper.
Pay up, baby. Reparations. Anyway.
Be proud.
And I thought this is funny because in that conversation, that's American Johnson there that's peeking. That's Luna's partner, sorry. And he's peeking his head in, and then they kind of have make a thing because it's all about white people and criticizing whiteness and stuff.
Yeah. Hi, EJ.
Get out of here, white man.
Get out of here, white man.
That's a white man. Hi, white man, come here. You want to say anything to the panel today?
Hello, everyone. Just your. Oh, I can't say that one word.
You can't.
But it's me. I'm just using some of my white privilege here just to say hi. All right, get all that space. See you all. Have fun.
Your full head in the stream. All that
The
space.
whole thing.
I thought that was funny.
A lot of great points were brought up. And in the beginning, like this whole question of land back was being talked about. And it's so infuriating because you have this group of primarily, if not entirely, white so-called communists literally flanking so hard to the right on this issue, making an issue of land back, of a movement that's, centuries old. And then also embracing American patriotism because somewhere, somehow, they've made the calculation that embracing American patriotism, which is literally just code word for white supremacy, is somehow going to help the class struggle in the United States. It's a completely and utterly infantile approach, and it's so indicative of what we were talking about earlier that Professor Flowers brought up, is like the racism of the white left, like being unable to even be aware of how you're not going to lead there's literally been no class struggle that's been led on the basis of American patriotism, but there's been plenty of wars, there's been plenty of genocide, there's been plenty of mass murder, super exploitation, state repression, all of it that's been justified in the name of American patriotism. But yet here we are having to have, among so-called socialists and communists, having to have a debate that has literally been settled over and over and over again throughout the course of history. Even within the communist movement has it been essentially settled in the sense that white supremacy has been the biggest barrier, as was said earlier, literally like one of the biggest barriers to any kind of class unity, right? And when there has been class unity, it's only been when, let's say, certain sections of the Communist Party in this country was able to see the forest from the trees and say, okay, we really do need to develop solidarity with Black people. We do need to fight lynching. We do need to be part of that. Because if we don't, then guess what? All of us are essentially going to be much worse off because of it. But we don't have that kind of debate going on right now. What we have is a lot of talk about symbolism, a lot of talk about electoral politics, a lot of talk about slogans that these folks don't even understand, a lot of abstraction. And I think it really does come from, as was just said, this decay of capitalism. Like literally these forces are trying to just...
if you can hear purring, it was probably Nandi was laying on my chest while I was screen recording.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I was wondering who in there was a cat.
Throw anything they have, and they don't have much because they haven't studied these issues. They haven't. They don't have any relationships, I'm sure, with movements that are led by Black people, by people of color, by Indigenous people. They don't have those relationships. They're literally looking at their suburban towns or their so-called small rural white communities and saying, well, that's America, and that's all, at the end of the day, it's all political calculus because it's all looking at this trend. And this is the big, broad problem, I think, that we're facing, is that there is this trend happening where a lot of people are simply looking at the Trump phenomenon still, even though Joe Biden, he's president, he's barely there, but he's president. But they're looking at this Trump phenomenon and what's happened since and saying, well, there's obviously this large section of white people who have been somehow just deemed working class in its entirety is 65 million people. And we got to win them over if we're going to win elections on the progressive side of things. And I think there has been this unfortunate merger of right-wing politics, white supremacy, with even so-called well-intentioned, they're liberals because they're still on the, they're not communists, they're not socialists, but they're on the like Bernie Sanders spectrum, social democratic specter of politics, and they're making a calculation that, okay, if we're going to ever win anything.
What, Didi?
Oh, just, I wanted to say, you know, like this whole thing, this rejection of identity politics isn't just, this isn't important, we should be focusing on this. It's an actual hostility to people pushing for an end to racism or an end to homophobia or an end to transphobia.
It's hostile.
So because it's a hostility to it, it's actually racist, or it's actually homophobic, or it's actually transphobic.
Yeah, I was on a thread, fellow traveler, communist thread, live chat, and I mentioned something about that, you know, and somebody said, "Oh, fuck ID poll." That's what they said.
Yeah, but if people,
this isn't a communist,
but if you've got a group of people who are nationalist, you know, American socialists or whatever, who are kind of trying to identify with the working class, but not in a very socialist kind of way, and who are actively against marginalized groups, you've got the ingredients for fascism.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Because what is the dislike of communists or Jews or gypsies or black people, all the other people the Nazis didn't like, other than, you know, that kind of racism and that kind of, you know, and mix it with nationalism, and you're already 3/4 to fascism.
Yeah. And I don't mean to equate Max Blumenthal with fascism, but listen. Listen. I was going to say something. Something just occurred to me that I wanted to mention to people yesterday. I heard Max Blumenthal basically putting a question mark over the climate crisis. Sort of much talked about. He used this term. And I can't, what was the term he used?
If we assume there's a climate crisis, something like that.
Something to the effect of, if we assume there's a climate crisis. And I thought, what do you mean, if we assume? Like, and this is where...
You think that it's a question?
Yeah, and this is where he starts to get, you start to see, I saw that I saw that when he started talking about the planet of the humans. And he's ignored the COP26. He didn't even make a comment from what I saw from his Twitter. Maybe he did somewhere else, but I never saw him make a comment about COP26 like that isn't something important to say something about. And then, you know, the anti-vaxxer stuff, which I've talked about. And so there's all these different things. I'm thinking, where is he going with all of this? It just gets more and more curious. You know what I mean? Because when you start putting question marks over... And that's how I interpreted it, Didi, that he put a question mark over whether there actually was a climate crisis. It was a little one, but I just sort of thought,
is there any,
what do you, what do you mean?
The most critical issue
what do you mean?
Of the planet.
Anyway, you know, just sort of found that to be another sort of weird thing. But anyway.
We're not going to win over the neoliberals, so we got to win over the far right.
Yeah, climate change is absolutely real. It's not even change, it's a crisis.
And the most disgusting thing, and the thing nobody will look at, is that every year, like there are limits, and every year we don't do something, or we do less than we could, then the next year you're going to have to do more. And it makes it more and more impossible.
And really, a lot of scientists are really, and I don't want to get into being very doomerish and pessimistic, because I've talked about this, my own feelings about it. I think it's all over, and you do too, Didi. And it was all over 2000, really. That was when that was the last time. That's when Didi thought that's the last they could. And she's been involved a lot in environmental stuff, haven't you, Didi?
We shouldn't be trying to do the right thing.
No, we should be trying to do something, including becoming vegan, but being vegan for real good reasons of non-human animals. But you know, the tremendous benefits of being vegan in relation to the climate crisis and all of that. But anyway, but anyway, it just anybody sort of putting a question mark over climate the climate crisis at this point is going to get a hell of a shock, Didi, in 10 to 15 years.
Yeah.
Honestly and truly.
Royal Jenkins says Max is becoming like Alex Jones. I don't think he's quite...
No, he's not that bad.
Yeah.
Alex Jones sometimes sounds like he's literally having hallucinations. I've watched a couple of things where I've just thought, oh my God, is he on drugs? Like it really, really looked like he was having some sort of a delusion. Anyway,
If that makes any sense in the actual material.
No, Max Blumenthal is a very good journalist when it comes to imperialism, but this side venture that he's taken on, which is taking up most of his time now, the whole
Anti-vax
anything that will stick in relation to vaccines, anything at all, and it doesn't have to have any journalism in it whatsoever, that is a big problem to me, because it's actually causing hesitancy and it's causing death. I'm sorry, but he basically is contributing to a death toll by causing hesitancy and conflating all sorts of things into one thing. Anyway,
real reality of struggle. Like the only way we should not be trying to build some kind of majoritarian movement in the morass and decay of empire. We need a critical mass of people that are principled, that are studied, disciplined, and hardened and experienced in the struggle to fight on the basis of real class unity, which means being able to understand the self-determination of oppressed people and oppressed nations, being able to be of service to those movements as we try to build a broader one. That's the only way it's ever going to happen. It's the only time there's ever been any success in the United States on the part of any kind of class struggle. But we're not having that conversation. We're literally having to talk about American patriotism, Trump versus non-Trump, neoliberals versus Tucker Carlson. Is Tucker Carlson good? All of this weird stuff. This is the media space, right? Like all of this.
Tucker Carlson too. Like, don't get me started about Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, really.
But there was an interview he did with somebody just yesterday, who was talking about, in the most misogynist terms, women and the military, right? That they didn't belong, but also one of the things he said was he was really pushing this toxic masculinity, alpha men in quotes thing. Basically, alpha men should be in control of it all, and they should be sitting on a throne of Chinese skulls.
Yes.
A throne of Chinese skulls.
Yeah.
That's what he said. And Tucker Carlson, with that strange look he always has on his face when he's interviewing people, didn't push back on that. I mean, that's sort of like that's like Apocalypse Now kind of somebody's take. You know, when you see The Simpsons, where Homer Simpson, he's doing some sort of flash thing where he's sitting on a fucking chair of skulls and with a demented look on his face. It's kind of, but except this is real life, and these are real people. And can you imagine Chinese people in the United States seeing that,
watching that,
a throne of Chinese skulls, or people who wouldn't have missed it, as somebody said, people in China would become aware of that particular interview and the kind of unhinged, warmongering sort of talk about otherization, Didi. A throne of Chinese skulls. Yeah. Anyway, fucking disgusting.
Strange kind of flailing in the...
Hi, Yuri. I'm sorry. Yuri's another one. I can't see his comments, sadly.
Not staying long. Been listening for a long time.
Oh, you have? Are we making sense, Yuri?
And so I need to get proper sleep. LOL, but I just wanted to make that.
Oh, nice to see you, Yuri, even though I can't see you.
Yeah.
So anyway.
Lovely to see you.
Yeah, lovely to see you. Have a good sleep.
Have a good sleep.
Yeah. Okay.
Don't know where you're going, have no roadmap, so you're just trying to shoot your shot.
And one more thing, like Glenn Greenwald, Jackson Hinkle, Max Blumenthal, all seem to like Tucker Carlson, all refer to him as if there's nothing wrong with him. He's just a white nationalist, misogynist, racist who constantly pushes him anti-Chinese propaganda and wants to have a war on China. He's a complete capitalist. There's nothing wrong with him, Didi. He's fabulous.
In that thing on Assange that we watched, the Katie Halper thing.
Yeah.
What's his name came on there and just was standing.
Oh yes, Sagar Angetti
every
He must have mentioned his name.
Sentence he was on about Tucker Carlson. Oh, Tucker Carlson. Oh, Tucker Carlson.
Yeah, this is on Katie Halper's.
It was pukesome.
Yeah, it was. It was about Julian Assange, and there was different people on.
It was about Julian Assange.
It was about Julian Assange, and the only thing that would have made it, I made a joke in the chat. I'm surprised I didn't get maybe hassle for it. I said only one thing would make it better if you interviewed Tucker Carlson.
Yeah.
After Sagar and Jetty.
Yeah.
Nandi's trying to eat my microphone cord. Stop it, Nandi. Okay. Yeah. So anyway, this standing
briefly,
an obsession.
I have a few problems with that particular Planet of the Humans thing.
Yeah.
There's parts of it that are really quite okay. There's parts of it that I'm not so happy with. I actually did a video on it on my channel some time back.
If Life is a Leaf.
Yeah.
Go join Dee Dee's channel, If Life is a Leaf. Yeah. She doesn't do near enough content because she's too busy yapping away to me on this channel.
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway.
And it's not working. And it's literally making, unfortunately, a lot of white people even...
One thing I would like to say about... this whole thing, the whole thing is a scam because there are industries that are wanting to do green, that are saying they're wanting to do green stuff and they're cleaning up and all this sort of thing. So making out like the whole thing, climate change, is a hoax to make money for green industries and stuff. Holy crap. Like Corey Morningstar and, Corey Morningstar, and there was somebody else, James Corbett, and like James Corbett, I don't consider him on the left, or I don't know Corey Morningstar, but that sort of narrative. Now, look, capitalism
also technically incorrect about a lot of the things they said about.
But capitalism is capitalism. It doesn't matter. Like if they're green industries or whatever they are, they're going to make money on it. But you know what? I would prefer an industry that actually. Now, I know there's problems with some of those green technologies, like they're actually not really doing what they say they're doing, but there are some that are, okay? It's not all bad.
Yeah.
But those industries, I would rather people make money doing something that's might actually be helping than helping oil industries by feeding into this narrative that it's all fucked, so let's just let it all go and let's just have...
You're talking about the activists making money.
Any corporations making green technology, I would prefer that than to have oil industries.
I don't think that talked too much about those corporations.
No, I'm not talking about Planet of the Humans now. I'm just making a comment, right?
Oh, yeah.
You know how people are talking about, you know how people will shit on, they'll say that the whole climate thing is just a big scam for people that are saying they've got green technology to clean up.
Yeah.
And as if the whole climate thing is just made up. Do you know what I mean? Other industries can clean up.
No, the climate change thing is real, and there's a lot of...
Yeah, we know that.
Have some huge issues.
Didi, we know that, but I'm saying there are individuals like Corey Morningstar, I think, that is putting out that kind of narrative, right?
Yeah.
Now, I might be wrong about him. I haven't read everything he's said, but it sort of like starts to lean in that direction. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. That's probably a bigger discussion that we need to have another time.
Yeah, sure.
But and a fairly complex one. There's certainly a lot of tech companies that are misusing or profiting badly from or misrepresenting stuff. And it's not like all things that are done for the environment are bad, because there's quite a few good things.
Look at Australia. If they'd had Didi...
China and its solar car.
Yeah, I was going to say,
electric cars.
If Australia had done solar 30 years ago, we'd be off electricity.
Yeah.
We'd be, because we have so much sun here, right?
Yeah.
But you've worked... Didi has worked for a long time on environmental issues in Parliament and all that kind of stuff. She helped start the West Australian Greens and all that kind of thing, right? And she realised a long time ago that government, they're not short of information about the climate collapse even back 30 years ago.
Yeah.
They knew that back then.
Yeah.
It was the political will not to do anything about it. It wasn't lack of information. They knew it was going to be a shit show now, and they did nothing. That was like 30, 40 years ago, wasn't it, Didi?
In the 80s, I was working with the Institute for Science and Technology Policy, and we did some studies of like global energy use and also Australian energy use, modeling different responses. And at that point, I made the point that, like, we're going up and up, and every year you don't take action, the cost becomes higher, because there are points where, there will be feedback loops that will just send climate change out of control. And we have to stop it before that. And if people had started doing stuff in the 60s when it started to be talked about, I mean, in the 70s, the community I was living in, we were powered by wind generators, and we had homemade solar hot water heaters. And, it was possible back then to do that kind of stuff. If people had put in the energy into that technology then and started working on it, it would have been a very easy path to no carbon emissions. It would have been. It wouldn't have been hugely restrictive. It wouldn't have caused huge changes. I mean, eventually the changes would have been very large, but they would have been gradual. At this point, in order to do the kind of things they're talking about by 2030 or something, really, honest to God, they should be making major global efforts, putting, resources from, stop all this political crap and wars and all that sort of stuff. Put all your energy and that kind of thing into, climate issues, and you might get to those points, but it would be hugely disruptive. And they don't want to be disruptive.
No. And look, about Cory Morningstar, I'm not entirely sure. That was the impression I got. Maybe someone can correct me on that. But that's the impression I get, is that the whole thing is a big hoax. You know what I mean? It's a bigger hoax to make more money. Capitalism sort of thing. Well, capitalism, of course, is people are even targeting vegans now because they realize they're a niche. That's what capitalism does, doesn't it, Didi? It finds niches and then it exploits them. Anyway, let's continue on with this. But and
further, it's like pushing them further off of the lurch. And, we have Black New Report talk about how the Democratic Party is a huge part of that, because it's like literally killed the left in so many ways. It's taken all of these movements and taken their leadership and, siphoned them off into the coffers and then disorganized, and then that disorganizes the grassroots. But at the same time, we can't just be complicit in what the outcome of that is. We can't just say, okay, well, the outcome of that is politics in the United States are so much more to the right. White supremacy is more virulent and spreading like a cancer more than ever, just like COVID. And so we just got to give in, and we just have to start where people are. No. If you're a revolutionary, you're in the vanguard. If you're not in the vanguard, you don't want to be in that seat. You got to step back. And honestly, you should probably not be talking about things you don't understand. That's how I feel about it. You don't want to.
That's a little poke at people that are talking about patriotic socialism and they don't know what they're fucking talking about. And there's a few people doing that. It's bullshit. What an oxymoron.
And to sit there and read some Marx and Lenin, and I don't know how much some of these people have actually read. And sit there and then go, oh, so we can be racist, so we can be this and that,
How can you be promoting racist positions like fuck minority groups organizing and then call yourself a socialist? What the fuck is that?
Be in the vanguard of the struggle. You don't want to try. You don't want to assert any kind of leadership in that way. Then maybe there's something else for you to do. But you shouldn't be trying to act like you're some kind of pundit. You're some kind of voice in the struggle that has influence. Really, all that is business at the end of the day. If that's really where you're at. So that's how I feel about all this. I really appreciate you all having this stream, listening to me ramble on about this stuff.
Yeah, we don't even want to get into that Rittenhouse nonsense. So like that whole situation. Do we even want to open that can of worms where it's like, Rittenhouse?
They're having a laugh about the Rittenhouse thing. I bet you they could hardly believe. I think they could hardly believe it when they saw people that call themselves leftists defending a white supremacist murderer. I'm sorry. I mean, I just remember being on Twitter when somebody said on Twitter, oh my God, what am I looking at on the Jimmy Dore show? And I thought, what's happened? You know, because I don't really watch him anymore.
Yeah.
I unsubscribed when he went down this ridiculous, continual COVID stuff, and then this fucking Rittenhouse thing. But like, I mean, I think they're as incredulous about that whole thing of this defending Rittenhouse. You couldn't make that up.
Yeah.
You know, that's the last thing I thought would happen. Now I just, nothing will, I think after that, nothing probably will surprise me.